My name's Mike. I host your Dark Companion. And I want to thank you all for joining us on patreon.com. And also, do check out the Sunset Lounge because there's all kinds of good things going on there, such as the Ingle Angle, a weekly combination of commentary on sports, entertainment, pop culture, family, with Mac Ingle of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Mac takes a very unusual angle on things, so check out the Ingle Angle.
Nobody would have thought that I would be the one. Rhyner, sports talk. Baseball, 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 baseball.
Oh, with the big mic. Oh, okay. All right, yeah. Okay, now I get it.
We got a lightning strike, boys. What happened over there, Grego? We had a little lightning strike right outside the window.
All right. Here's a tip for all these Americano League teams.
Wait, you said tip?
Yeah, tip.
Okay.
With a P.
Keep jamming.
The ticket, colon, nothing but a big Gen X jerk-off sake. This is a cool night or what? Although somebody would hear that and go, bullshit.
I'm back, bitches.
Hi, kids. Welcome to the Music Roundtable from your Dark Companion, brought to you by the CBD House of Healing. We are inside the legendary Kessler Theater today, in the heart of Oak Cliff, a place that, as a boy, I drove by many times and never saw anything going on here. Sometimes it was a church, but only for a little while. Most times it was just sitting here, vacant. And in recent years, they have turned it into a music venue. And it is a gift to our Fairburg from the great Edwin Cavanis and Jeff Liles, who is up here with us today. It's a fantastic place to see a show of any kind. And I'm guessing that they probably haven't had too many things like we're going to do today in here, but it's first time for everything, you know. We are here today to discuss music. Now, I know a lot of you may be saying, well, wait a minute, you're a sports guy. What are you doing discussing music? Well, for however big as a part of my scene that sports has been over the years, music has been for a long time, maybe even longer, because I've always been to music ever since I was a little kid. And I think I have 4 like-minded souls up here with me. I know one of these guys I've already had substantial discussions about music with many times over the years. The other 3, well, we'll just check out their metal tonight, but I think they'll come up pretty big for us today. Let's introduce them one by one here. Let's start down there on the end if we can. Down there, we have Jesse Hawila of WFAA.
Thank you.
Now, you may know him as a weatherman. You may know him as a weather guy, but, you know, you think guys are weather guys, sports guys, they're whatever you see them being, and the fact is, the expanse of their scene is very, very broad. And that's what I've found from Jesse after having him on YDC a couple times now. Thank you for doing this today.
Thank you for having me. It's an absolute honor to be here with everybody. I feel like I shouldn't be sitting right here with you guys, but thank you. Thank you.
And on his right, a guy that needs no introduction to anybody who's been involved in music around here over the years. You hear him on the radio. You've heard him for years on the radio, on the Edge, now on 92.5. What do they call it these days?
Lone Star.
Lone
92.5.
Star. Yeah, 92.5. Lone Star. He is the great Jeff K.
Thank you, Mike. Pleasure to be here.
And I know I shortchanged your credentials there. We'll get to those later on today.
Just happy to be here, buddy.
Thanks, man. Thank you for doing this. And on his right, we have the man who is the man with the plan here at the Kessler. He is a promoter of shows. He has put out music on his own. That just scratches the surface, maybe, of what he's done. But He let us in here to do this today, and we're damn glad he did. He is the great Jeff Liles. DDT. And on his right, a guy who actually plays music and does it like few others and has done it like few others for many years. If you've been to see any of his bands, you know this. And these days, if you're going to see his bands, you're getting well up there on the scale, because these days he plies the craft with the Dirty Knobs, which is fronted by Mike Campbell, the guitar player Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. They needed another guitar player not too long ago. Somebody happened to know him. He auditioned, and boom, just like that, he's in. But wait, there's more. Not too long ago, the Eagles needed a guy. And it just so happens that one of his other gigs is playing in Don Henley's solo band. And Don looked at the other guys and said, I think I know a guy. And that guy was him. He is the great Chris Holt. Did I get that story somewhat right?
Yeah, I mean, that was, I think when I got the call last year to do the Eagles thing, it was because Don knew me from having done the work in his band, and everybody in the band knew me at that time and was like, oh, yeah, bring him in.
Oh, so you're already a known commodity to everybody else?
Well, I'd worked with everybody at that point in the band except Vince Gill. And Vince is super laid back, and I think he was willing to take the ride and see. But I knew everybody, and I think I was a good fit.
All
Hopefully.
right. I think the first place we ought to start with is the place I usually start with everybody. That being, how'd you get here? Jesse, what is the first music you remember hearing as a boy?
The very first, when I was very little, was Johnny Cash. My dad was a huge Johnny Cash fan, and we listened to a lot of that. This is going to be a really weird answer, but my dad is Lebanese, and he used to listen to Fairuz, which is a very popular Lebanese artist. So I used to get into that for some reason. It got me really interested, even though I couldn't understand anything. And then getting older, the band that really turned me into the other side of music, what I would say the alternate side of music, was a band called AFI from their album The Art of Drowning when I was much younger, and that really set me off into a world of, there you go, that's Miss Murder right there. So once I got to that, then I started getting into other genres of music, death metal, progressive metal. I mean, it just went from there. But that's the band that started getting me into that kind of stuff.
Jeff, what's the first music you remember hearing?
Do you like Dream Car? You're a Dream Car?
Dream Car.
Yeah, it's AFI offshoot.
Look
them up.
I will check that out. Thank you for that.
So I was a kid of the 70s, and I grew up kind of cut my teeth on AM radio and used to take the transistor radio and tie it to the handlebars of my bike and ride around, listening to WABC in New York City. I grew up in New Jersey before I moved to Dallas when I was 17. Went to college here, met my wife here. My daughter was born here, so I'm a Texan. But as far as kind of opening my mind to music and to radio was, the 70s and pop music on AM radio out of New York City, which was everything from the Jackson 5 to Led Zeppelin to, there were no formats back then. Whatever was popular was on the radio in the 70s, and I was getting exposed to all of it. So it kind of opened my mind to not just great music, but boundless, category-less music, which I think really benefited me in the long run. And then my neighbor, 2 doors down, was a girl named Rose Mahoney, and she was a DJ on WRSU, which was Rutgers State University, the college station. And one of her fellow DJs at the time on the station at Rutgers was Matt Pinfield, and Matt went on to have success at MTV. But they were the first 2 DJs in central New Jersey to start playing stuff by crazy bands like Duran Duran and Depeche Mode and A Flock of Seagulls and New Order. So as a very impressionable 16, 15, 16-year-old, realizing that there was more to my world than Led Zeppelin and Rush or whatever the album-oriented rock stations were playing. These college kids were playing this new wave music out of England, and so that was it. That was what I wanted to do the rest of my life, was find a way to play records on the radio.
Was there one band in particular that really flipped your lid?
So there was. Buddy of mine had an exchange student staying with him from France. And when the exchange student was away, we decided to rummage through his belongings just to see what this French kid was all about. And we discovered that he had brought some music from France with him. One of the cassettes he had was an album called Vienna by a band called Ultravox. And I had no idea what that was. And I put that on, and that was music that I had never heard before in my life. It was electronic-based, but it was symphonic. The lead singer sounded nothing like I'd ever heard before. The title track was so majestic that album changed my life. From there, I went and kind of tried to find anything and everything similar. And then, of course, in 1982, MTV signed on. We stayed up for 36 hours straight waiting for the Ultravox Vienna video to come on MTV.
How about you, Jeff?
Nice
Loved
groups.
Ultravox too, man. They were amazing. My first band that I was really into, of course, was the Beatles. I'm your age, so when I was a kid.
My age.
Yeah, I am. When I was a little kid, my grandfather gave me a copy of Sgt. Pepper's, and that just blew my mind. And so I got every Beatles record you could get. Every single one of them, and for a while, I was this little 6-year-old kid walking around thinking the Beatles were the only band on the earth. They're the only band that made music. And so I had the whole Beatles catalog before I realized that other people made music. And the way that happened was I was in the car with my family. We were driving on the street, and Sly Stone's If You Want Me to Stay came on the radio. And I heard that, and I was like, whoa, that's not John, Paul, George, or Ringo. What is that, And the guy came on and said it was Sly Stone. And I immediately made my parents go to Sears and buy me a copy of Fresh. And that got me into funk music and soul music. And then from there, a couple of years later, I became a big Led Zeppelin freak, of course. Every kid my age who was a teenager was way off into Led Zeppelin. And, of course, saw them in 1977. They opened their Dallas tour, or their United States tour here in Dallas. That was that. And then, of course, later I got into rap music and speed metal and everything else.
How about you, Chris?
I was born in the early 70s, and I just remember some of my first memories of listening to music were hearing some of those AM radio classics. I remember Jim Croce, Bad Bad Leroy Brown, and I remember Glenn Campbell, Rhinestone Cowboy. I just remember these songs. Lion Eyes was one of them. Mm-hmm. And I remember that these were songs that my dad would listen to all the time. And I just kind of became obsessed with music. And by the time MTV came around in 1981, then I had started really. I'd been buying 45s with ever. My parents would give me an allowance of $3 or something. I would always make my mom take me to the record store, and I would spend it on 45s.
Talk about inflation. I got a quarter.
We must have been doing really well then, 81. But I started getting really into guitar music. MTV was, when MTV started, I was only 8, so I was just obsessed with it. I would sit in front of it for, like you said, all day long, waiting to see, what would come next. And I had an older brother who was into it, and my older brother was into Ozzy and Rush, and I was hearing these things like Blizzard of Oz and Moving Pictures, and just the sound of the electric guitar just completely blew my mind. I was like, what is that? And then, as MTV would go on, I would just see all these videos and all these guitar players, and I thought, that's what I want to do. And I didn't even get a guitar for several more years until 85 or so. But by that point, by the time I started playing and started really digging in, I knew that was the only thing I wanted to do. And like Jeff, I became super obsessed with Led Zeppelin and, the Guitar Hero bands, Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
And then I discovered the Beatles at a pretty late age, actually. I was probably 17 when I finally gave the Beatles a chance. Because I was
and
like,
what year would this have been?
1990-ish, because up to that point I was like, man, the Beatles don't rock. They can't play. And I had a friend who was like, you're an idiot. You need to listen to Abbey Road. And that was the gateway drug for me, was listening to Abbey Road, possibly While High.
And the White Album.
And that completely opened up a whole world. And of course, to me, the Beatles are the be-all, end-all of everything now. So, but that's, I slowly got there.
Yeah, for me, it was probably the Beatles, but by the time the Beatles had come along, I'd already become an AM radio junkie. And back then, you didn't really get into singers or acts. There weren't really any groups or bands per se like we know them now. Back then, you just gravitated towards songs, and if a certain guy had, 2 or 3 songs that you dug, well, that was big. That all of a sudden that guy really matters to you. For me, Del Shannon was one of those guys. And gosh, there were a lot of others because my mother always had music going on, the radio going on in the house. And then we had KLIF, the Mighty 1190, one of the legendary radio stations ever. And it ruled radio back then for a kid my age and for really just about everybody. It ruled radio back then. And I don't know, the more I listened, the more I got drawn into it. The next thing you know, I see the Beatles and I want to be a drummer. So, okay, let's do that for a while. Let's waste about 30 years of your life trying to get good at that, which I did. And I don't know, it just kind of went on and on from there for me. But I don't know, I always think it's really interesting for how everybody gets into it and, how they go from being a fan to actually being a part of the scene to whatever extent they do and in whatever way they may do. Like you guys have we've all gotten into it a little bit differently and we've all become a part of the scene in different ways. And I guess that just shows that how diverse it all is and how splintered, I guess is a good word for it. It all is. And it just grabs everybody in different ways, Sure.
I would say I love the phrase you used, gateway, because I always think of the same thing when I was younger. It was always what my parents listened to. And then I started branching away from what my parents listened to. And then you grab that one album that's, off the beaten path. And it is like a gateway drug of sorts. And then you start experimenting with other things. So, you start with what your parents listen to, then you listen to a little bit of punk, then it leads you down this whole other rabbit hole of some incredible music. I like that term. That was great.
Yeah, I like how, you kind of find your comfort zone with music early on, and you have these things that you like, and they don't challenge you too much, but then suddenly something hits you that does challenge you, and then you think, whoa, that's totally outside the box, and everybody, I guess, has a different point there. But that's where you go from being a passive music fan to being an active music fan.
Absolutely.
You know what one of those things was for me that really challenged me and really changed my way of thinking, because I can be a little bit on the stubborn side sometimes. Oh, the devil's doing his work back there.
Shoopy.
But one that really made me take a much broader look around at a scene that I had never really delved into before. I was kind of leery of it. I thought it was weird. I thought it was alienating. But then the Cars came along. And when the Cars came along, I started paying attention to this new sounding music that I was hearing. And I was like, what year did the Cars come out? 78? Okay.
78.
I was 28 years old then. I was well beyond the idea of getting into some kind of music that younger people seem to be getting into. But the Cars changed everything for me.
I think we talked about that when I was on YDC the first time. There were those certain bands in the late 70s that seemed palatable enough to album rock stations, much like the Zoo, but yet were considered new wave or groundbreaking. The Cars certainly fit that bill. Cheap Trick is another one that would get a lot of airplay on both, or be accepted by punk rockers and album rockers. And they were a great gateway to peripheral fans of modern rock, punk rock, and kind of brought them into the scene, or maybe late bloomers. But 78 was still very early in the game for that sound, that style. And the Cars really broke a lot of ground. Not many bands' debut album is their greatest hits, but that Cars' first album certainly is.
It's flawless.
Yeah, it really is. And I've stayed with them to the end. And today, when a Cars song comes on the radio, I'm in. I am all in. I'm cranking it up, man.
Well, I'm playing one every 90 minutes on 92.5.
I think the thing about the Cars that there are two things. Obviously, songwriting. Rick Ocasek's songs were just amazing. Yeah, but the production and the arrangements, every part is so well realized. Every little bass note. Elliot Easton's the master of the guitar. I would put Elliot Easton up against any guitar player.
So underrated.
For phrasing,
it's not even
for tone, for composition. The perfect soloist.
And people just don't talk about him.
Yeah.
He's so underrated.
I want to hear Chris's favorite, punk era guitarists or new wave era guitarists. Not
I love the
guitar
guys,
heroes
I love
you
the guys
think of.
from
But you mentioned
television.
Elliot
I love
Easton.
Tom
Give me
Verlaine
5
and-
more from that genre that you love.
Oh yeah, let me think about that. I could probably talk about a lot of them. I'm a huge fan of Andy Partridge and Dave Gregory.
XTC.
Those-
By the way, I love the fact you're playing with the Eagles. That's great and all. When are you going to do the XTC tribute band?
We've talked about that for years. I've got a handful of guys, Paul Averett being one of them. We've talked about it and we've thought, okay, well, the first challenge that we've got to overcome is the fact that we would have more people in the band than in the audience.
That's true. I would be front row.
And it would take so much work to get an XTC show together that it...
Terry Chambers is coming. Terry Chambers is coming to
I know,
Dallas
I'm
with
going
his
to go see that show. My
XTC.
friend Craig and I are going to that
Yeah,
one.
as long as the stars don't screw me over.
Well,
and give me
hopefully
a
I'll
play.
see you there, yeah.
Doesn't look like they are. No, hopefully they will. Anyway, back to the guitarists.
Well, I could talk guitar players all day. You don't want to have the conversation derailed with that.
I figured you could rattle them off real quick.
Well, I would have to think about it.
Andy Summers.
Go around.
What's that?
Summers.
Andy Summers with
Oh,
Police,
absolutely.
for sure.
Andy Summers, brilliant. Yeah.
What about Rick Nielsen at Cheap Trick?
I love Rick Nielsen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great
Any of these
songwriter.
bands have any influence on you, Jesse?
Yeah, absolutely. I was born in '89, so I missed out on a lot of what I would say is some of the most golden era of rock. So, but yeah, absolutely. My parents would listen to it. I would get absorbed into it. So, like Led Zeppelin. My father-in-law, big fan of Steely Dan, so he really got me into Steely Dan.
All right.
That was my first concert.
my guy.
Really? So you were into Steely Dan?
I am
I
now.
would think with like metal and punk as kind of the core that the Dan might be a little
It's-
outside.
I guess I kind of went backwards in a way, like in terms of you would think a lot of folks would start with Steely Dan and some of the more classic rock bands that move their way into other stuff. But as I got older, I started becoming more open-minded with music, and I started listening to some of this older stuff. Older to me, like my father-in-law is really into these things. So like the Moody Blues, Steely Dan, he got me into that. So now, back when I was growing up, I grew up in the '90s. So, which you're talking about all these bands before my time, but they're still huge today and just absolutely amazing musicians.
And I think that when you get into music and you start really digging into whatever's current, whatever's influencing you in that moment, if you're really a student of it, then you're going to go backwards and try to find out what influenced them.
That's what
like,
happened.
I really love this band, so I want to find out who they listen to.
Yeah.
And that's, I've kind of shamelessly
Yeah, you start
admit
looking
that-
at bands like that, and all of a sudden you're wondering, okay, now how did he get here?
Exactly.
That's
That's what I
everybody
would
kind
do
of took it from somebody else.
Yeah, that's exactly.
We're all thieves.
No, that's exactly right. I would find a band that I love so much, read about them, and understand who influenced them. Then I would say, okay, let's go back and see who influenced them. Then you start to piece things together. You're like, well, they don't sound exactly the same, but you can start to see where they gathered their sound. And I think that's super cool.
All right, here's another hot potato for the round table. Jesse Hawila, Jeff K, Jeff Liles, Chris Holt. Do you hear much new music today that you find terribly interesting? Because this is a question that is asked through generations. You know, in the 80s.
Chris's new record is amazing. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to hear it yet, but Chris's new
yes,
album
sir.
is fantastic. And I'm not just
paid him
blowing
to
smoke
say
up
that.
your ass. We listen to it all the time here on the House Music, and it's great. If you were ever into any 70s music, I mean, the first thing that I thought of when I heard of it is kind of like a Yes record. You know, it's so textural and has so many harmonies and has the arrangements are challenging and beautiful, and it's a freaking beautiful record, man.
Thank you. That's very sweet of you.
And he's playing here. He's having his record release party here.
Yes, May 16th.
And it's about to sell out. So
right.
if you're planning on coming, get tickets right away because it's going to be really, really good.
We're going to have a really big band for one night to try to tackle all those harmonies and all those.
We should be proud of him
layers.
because it's a great record. A lot of people are going to blow. It's going to blow their minds when they hear it.
I'll say that I have a really hard time digging for new music. I read somewhere that there comes a point in a music fan's life, like a certain age, where you just stop seeking out new music. You become set in your ways, and I'm as guilty as anybody. And I think it's really tough now with all the streaming and everything. Although if you do listen to streaming and you have things suggested to you, maybe that's an easier way to do it. Mm-hmm. But I just don't dig for music like I used to. I don't go just dig through bands and find something and go, oh, I think I'll buy this, I'll try this, you know. So I'm not as good about it as I used to be.
Yeah, I stopped long ago myself, you know, and I've had periods in life where I've gone through, you know, fits and starts where I'll stop, then I'll start looking for it a little bit more, start seeking it out a little bit more. When the Edge came on, I started tuning that in a little bit more and hearing stuff that I'd not been exposed to quite so much. I was alienated by a good bit of it, but I was still, you know, consuming it. And I kind of got used to it. As I've gone through my trail, it's been kind of a fits and starts thing. But really, I haven't gone through a start in a long time. I mean, it's been a long time since I've really started seeking out new music. What about you, Jeff? I mean, you're exposed to stuff all the time.
I mean, I find that it's easy and it's more difficult these days to be, I don't know, exposed to new music per se. Again, last time we spoke on this program, I preached the greatness of the Lemon Twigs, and you came out and you saw the Lemon Twigs at Deep Ellum Art Company.
I did.
I hope you enjoyed the concert as much as I did.
Yeah,
I doubt it, but
I did. It was quite good.
But the reason that I like the Lemon Twigs is because they're two brothers from Long Island, and they play all their own instruments, and they're amazing. And they are friends with Todd Rundgren, and they played on Todd's last album. And they just make music that reminds me of the music that I really dig. And why are these 20-something kids from Long Island making music that sounds like, you know, rock from the early to mid-'70s? And why are they doing it so well? It has a lot to do with their upbringing. Their father was a musician, and he's very talented, and he raised them the right way. But if you have a chance, go to Spotify, look up the Lemon Twigs. I think you'll enjoy them. There's also another band out of England that I really like. They're called The Last Dinner Party, and they put out an album last year that was one of my favorite albums. It's an all-girl band out of England, The Last Dinner Party. But they remind me a lot of like Susie and the Banshees, which is something that I loved from the 80s. So I was a big fan of them. Fontaine's DC is another band that I think is really great. They're kind of punky, bit of the Clash in there, put their own spin on it, but they're a young band. The reason that I know about a lot of these bands is because I'm very active on social media. You know, I'm constantly scrolling Instagram. I get suggestions from friends. I got turned on to the Lemon Twigs, believe it or not, by Elton John. Elton John does a show on Apple Beats One or whatever the channel is where he does his radio show, and he really is into new music, and he actively searches out new bands. And so back in 2015, he said on his Instagram feed, hey, this week on the show, I've got a band called the Lemon Twigs, and he showed a picture of the band, and the two brothers looked just weird enough to catch my attention, and I love the name the Lemon Twigs, and The song was very Baroque pop. It was called These Words. Reminded me of kind of Queen, meets the Beatles with a little bit of XTC thrown in. So I was like, wow. So yeah, Elton John turned me on to new music, believe it or not. But I've always kind of had the passion for finding the next thing, the new thing. But will I like it? Probably because it reminds me of something I already like.
I'll tell you who the next big thing is going to be.
Tell us.
He played here 2 weeks ago. This guy named Jesse Wells. I don't know if any of you have heard Jesse Wells yet, but that guy is on to something. He's this kind of weird hippie kid from, I think, either Alabama or Tennessee or somewhere in the southeast. But he's first of all, his show here sold out in a day. 600 tickets, like that. And this guy is going to be like the next Bob Dylan. I mean, every one of his songs, he sat here and played for 2.5 hours, and just nailed it. The audience was transfixed.
Just him by himself, or was it a band?
The first half of his show was just him by himself with a guitar. Then he brought in a rhythm section that came in and finished up the second hour and a half of it. It was absolutely extraordinary. It's been a long time since I've seen any one artist just come here and have the audience in the palm of his hand like that. And honestly, I didn't know much about him. I'd seen a couple of his videos on YouTube. I mean, he's one of those artists that kind of organically happened on YouTube or TikTok or whatever. But all of his songs are about real-time issues. He had a song about Elon Musk. He had a song about deportation. He had a song, it was very political. It was very upfront. His lyrics are like magic. The guy has a way with words like Bob Dylan did. You know what I'm saying? It works on that same level. Mm-hmm. And it was an extraordinary thing. I mean, usually like once a year, we'll have an artist that comes in here and just, blows everybody away. This year, it was Jesse Wells. And that kid, I'm telling you, he is going to be huge.
I was going to say, how'd you find out about him? But I think I know. And that is by the miracle of social media.
A lot of kids. There were a lot of kids here. And that gives me hope because a lot of young people, they've got all these other distractions in their life. They got all this other stuff that they're into, like video games or whatever it is that they're into. They're not really discovering artists the same way that we used to when we were younger. But they've discovered this guy, and they've embraced him, and I can guarantee you that guy is going to be huge.
Boy, I envy those kids, too.
I have a question for Jeff.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Because you book bands all the time and you see this kind of stuff. I think it's kind of awesome that these shows organically happen. When the Last Dinner Party played, they played the studio at the factory in Deep Ellum, sold out. The record wasn't even out. They don't get any airplay on the radio. Those days are over where bands had to get played on the radio to sell out a venue. What do you attribute this Jesse Wells success? Is it just social media? Is it just TikTok? Why was this room packed?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I would think it's social media, but it's got to be word of mouth. It's got to be people talking to each other. Hey, have you heard this guy? Because everybody knew all the words to the song already. And it was like they were calling out song titles and stuff. And I was like, how the hell did this happen so fast? It's weird. You've got two different kinds of artists. You've got artists that are brand new, and then you've got these other artists that have been around for years. And the ones that have been around for years or even decades or whatever, they've toured so many times now that the challenge for them is to reinvent themselves every time. The challenge for them is to come up with a concept for the tour that makes people want to come see them again. Because in the beginning, they were just out there singing their songs and doing their thing. But now that it's been 25 or 30 years or whatever, they have to do it like, we're playing this album front to back. Or, we're doing all songs like Todd Rundgren came through a couple weeks ago doing all Burt Bacharach songs. They're all constantly trying to reinvent themselves so what they do doesn't get stale. So you got these two different groups. You got these younger artists that are brand new, that are still this like immediate thing. And then you've got these other artists that we love but have been doing the same show for 25 years. So the challenge for them is to reinvent themselves at age 50 or 60 or whatever. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't,
Yeah, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
Take it from me.
Just trying to stay relevant, right, Mike?
That's what you do.
I just wanted to say one thing. A few minutes ago, we were talking about how we discovered music or whatever. I just want to give you props because being a part of KZEW was legendary. For people who were teenagers and my age in Dallas, to have a radio station like that in Dallas, when you're just kind of figuring out what you like about music, having this radio station that was on the FM dial that played, you'd go from like Ted Nugent to Led Zeppelin to Kraftwerk
To the Cars.
the Cars. It was just this huge mix. It was incredibly challenging, and it was beautiful. It turned people on to so many different types of music, and it was, I can still remember hearing Roxy music and to David Bowie and Lou Reed and to David Essex.
And for somebody like me who came from New Jersey listening to college radio, hearing all the Ultravox and the, I come
George
to
Gabark
UT
show.
Arlington, and I'm skateboarding down the Commons in my Ultravox shirt, and some kid goes, "Oh, you like Ultravox? Yeah. There's a show on Sunday nights on the Zoo that you should listen to because that guy plays that weird Ultravox stuff." I'm like, what? There's radio in Dallas that plays Ultravox?
Yeah.
Sunday nights on the Zoo. George
And
Gabark,
the
rock
great
and roll
George
alternative.
Gabark.
George's show was the first show probably in America to play U2 on the radio. And the Sex Pistols, the Clash, all of those bands, when they first came out, he had a show on Sunday nights that, it broke this whole new style of music. When you were talking about the Cars, I'm sure George was the first DJ in Dallas to play that on the radio.
It's very possible.
He had the term alternative before it was a format, right? He called his show
Yes,
Rock and Roll Alternative.
Rock and Roll Alternative.
Which he'd be the first to tell you he took from an album title from, whose album was it? I can't remember. He's probably chastising me right now if he's watching. But, he didn't come up with the name Rock and Roll Alternative, but how prescient, right? That he knew at that time that this was an alternative to the mainstream.
And I always tried to imagine what the dynamic was like there at the station. Because all the DJs that were on during the week all had long hair and they were hippies, Doc Morgan and John Dillon and all those guys, John Rohde and Mike. They all were hippies, And then George was this nerd, He's this kind of dorky guy or whatever. But George had impeccable taste in music.
I remember the first time I saw him up at the radio station. And believe me, when it comes to being a hippie and being cool, I was well behind the curve of all those guys you just mentioned.
Yeah.
I just about set the standard for dorkdom up there myself.
Well, I knew when Kashmir by Led Zeppelin was on the radio that you guys were on the roof smoking dope. Because it's 10 minutes long.
Quite possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, George, when he came in there, the first time I saw him, I just thought, man, what's that guy's trip? And what's he doing here?
Was an Atlanta Rhythm Section album title called The Rock and Roll Alternative, believe it or not. 1976 album.
Now, there's a man who knows how to use social media right
Yacht
there.
Rock.
Average White Band was another band you'd always hear on the Zoo. I always
Yes,
liked them
that's
too.
right.
And you play
the
instrumental
format
stuff
was
like
very,
Billy
very
Preston.
broad back then. They used to play the Isley Brothers, too.
Sly the Family Stone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a very, very broad format. It was a very wide open time. And then
We were so damn lucky to have that in our hometown.
Oh, God.
I think that's a theme, right? Because I told you growing up that I was very fortunate to listen to a radio station that wasn't formatted, that I could hear the Jackson 5 into Glenn Campbell into Led Zeppelin. I think that's that's a real problem these days with
It is.
commercial or terrestrial radio. That's my bread and butter is working for terrestrial radio. And we could spend another
And you do
round
it
table
very,
talking
very
about
well.
that. But, now with satellite or podcasting or whatever, Spotify, you can get your niche and listen to just one thing. But not knowing what's coming next was half the fun of why I'd listen to radio in the first place.
You remember taping the radio?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Always.
Yeah.
Now, I never did that, probably because I don't think I had a recording device until I was well into adulthood. But you guys would actually tape radio shows?
Rock and Roll Alternative. Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've talked to many who have done that, and that's always kind of been, wow, really?
Yeah, I've
sure
got the Rock and
George's
Roll
air
Alternative
checks are
Christmas show
priceless.
from like 86. I listen to it every Christmas.
Yeah. I would sit there and I would pause it. And if there was a song that I knew that I didn't like, I'd pause it and I'd kind of rewind and
Commercials.
cue it up for the next one. And I'd wait right to the end and I'd, just to see what
pause
comes
it when the
next.
DJ
Wow.
talked. We don't want to hear
I
that
had tons
DJ.
of
That's
things.
next level.
Yeah, I had tons of mixtapes.
I remember
that
waiting
were
for
kind of-
Bohemian Rhapsody to come on so I could tape that.
I had to wait for it to come on Dr. Demento one day because I knew, because, you couldn't get Queen's Greatest Hits with Bohemian Rhapsody on it on cassette, at least in Dallas for a while. I mean, you probably could have.
The Zoo had Dr. Demento too.
Yeah.
Yep,
I
it did.
taped it off Dr. Demento. That's how I got my Bohemian Rhapsody.
And then one day the consultants rolled in and just killed the vibe altogether. Said, yeah, let's stick to these 250 songs. Instead of the 750 you're playing, let's play 250 and just stick with that.
The thing that really bothers me, though, is that the more that happened, it seemed like the more the ratings went up.
I know. And that's always been one of the biggest contradictions of my time in the game and my time as a music fan, because once I was, on the inside and saw how it worked and saw how these cretins were, the control they had over everything all of a sudden, and how they tried to disguise it from the rank and file up there at the radio station. No, he's just a consultant. He's not telling us what to do. He's just a consultant. And then later on you find out that they're paying him thousands and thousands of dollars, and the general managers tell him, look, we're going to pay him thousands and thousands of dollars. You do what he says to do. And that set the whole thing spinning in an entirely different direction. I always say that consultants are like pigeons. They fly in, shit all over everything, and fly out.
I think Bohemian Rhapsody was probably the first music video. Remember, before MTV was even on, I remember Queen's record label was having a hard time figuring out how they were going to position that music for the public, because it was so out there and it was so weird. And it didn't have like most hit radio songs have a pretty set template. Intro, verse, chorus, bridge, break, verse, chorus, and it's over. And Bohemian Rhapsody was all over the place. And the record...
That is a single.
Yeah, well, the way they did, they made a film of it. And I remember seeing it on the Midnight Special one night. And that was like, that was the first time I ever heard it, was seeing that music video. And it probably predated MTV and other music video stuff probably by 5 or 10 years. And it was just conceptual and it was different. And that's really what captured you on a different level.
Even the Beatles kind of did that with a few songs because they didn't want to have to bother going on Ed Sullivan.
Right.
So
Rain.
they just made a quick little film and sent it,
Yeah, Rain was
like
one
Paperback
of their
Writer
first
and Rain,
films.
where, so it was like, but that's, you see that there were a handful of bands that were, and Queen was definitely one of the first.
I wonder what it was like working at a radio station when MTV first came along and thinking, oh my God, the radio's on television now. And it had to have been threatening or challenging or.
Isn't there a song about that?
Yeah, the first song they ever played on MTV. Video killed the radio star.
Yes, they were predicting the future.
Michael, do you remember when the Eagle went rock of the 80s?
Yes, I do remember
Kid
when the
Craddock
Eagle went
had to
rock
play
of
all
the
the
80s.
MTV new wave stuff.
Yes. And at that time I was not liking what we were doing on the Zoo so much, because I was wanting something that I don't know, something with a little more varied. And I jumped right over there. I mean, when I was in the car or something, I was listening to the Eagle for sure, and not the Zoo, because you're hearing different stuff, and I was kind of alienated by it, but at the same time, there was something in there that pulled me in. I liked it. I was a little too old for it, so I was, I was thinking to myself, look, man, you're not supposed to be liking this. This is for kids. Yet at the same time, it pulled me right on in. And before long, I was almost a total devotee. Anytime that I was in the car or anything.
Yeah, they formatted it, of course. They said, hey, here's like 5 or 10 videos on MTV that seem to be popular. Let's play those in heavy rotation. And it was I Ran by a Flock of Seagulls and, all the popular new wave stuff.
Devo was mind-blowing when they came out.
What's that?
Devo.
Yeah.
I'm curious about Jesse. Jesse, what's the weirdest music you ever listened to that was outside your comfort zone?
Initially grindcore music, which is really weird screaming, technical type of music, that kind of thing. I'm trying to think outside of my comfort zone. Well, I wouldn't say this was outside of my comfort zone, but I got really into just amazing guitarists without vocals like Steve Vai, Yngwie Malmsteen, Joe Satriani, that kind of thing. But I would say that's the kind of thing that I really.
Did you by chance hear or see the tour that came through about a month and a half ago at the Majestic of Steve Vai and the drummer of Tool and Adrian Belew and Tony Levin all doing King Crimson music?
No, I didn't.
It was extraordinary hearing Steve Vai do all of Robert Fripp's guitar parts.
It's incredible to watch him play. I got to see him, Yngwie Malmsteen, Zach Wilde as well, and the guitarist from Animals as Leaders play in Kansas City once, and it was like a religious experience. It's incredible what these guys can do on a guitar. Yeah. And a lot of times people think music, you think vocals or you think lyrics and all that, but you watch these guys just shred on a guitar for a couple of hours, and it's incredible. Yeah.
It's interesting how that was such the mainstream for a while. Like in the wake of Eddie Van Halen, Van Halen kind of opened the door for all these guitar players that, nowadays we might call them show-off guitar players or whatever, but it was a total shred thing. And now, in 2025, the concept of shredding is so off the charts. Like you see these guys on YouTube, and you're like, how do they even do that? Like, at least... Have
you heard Polyphia yet? You know who Polyphia is?
Yeah,
they're from Plano, Texas.
Yeah. Are they really?
Yeah.
Yes.
I had no idea.
They're extraordinary. They grew up here in Plano. They're already touring the world. They're selling out auditoriums in Germany and Japan and stuff, and both their guitar players are on their own planet.
Yeah.
Tim Henson is just like, I don't even know how he does it. You're sitting here watching his hands. It's like, that's not the sound that's coming out of his hands. That's so weird.
Probably playing Guitar Hero. You ever seen the videos where the guys do the Guitar Hero at a million miles an hour? I'm like, how in the heck do they do that?
That type of technical playing is what really drew me into that genre of music, especially in the more metal scene, is how technical the guitarists are, the weird time signatures, how melodic it is. It all just seems like chaos, but it's very beautiful.
Polyphia doesn't even need a singer. All their music's instrumental.
Yeah, it's all instrumental.
And both the guitar players are insane, and they had Steve Vai guesting on a couple of their songs. It's weird because their arrangements are so challenging and they're so extraordinary. But, this incredible like math rock type thing, and in the very end it has a trumpet player doing a weird solo.
I love it.
That just comes out of nowhere. And it's like, this is just so genius because it's so different, and it's right here in our fucking hometown. There's so many people in Dallas that don't even know who they are.
They don't play here anymore.
They played the Bomb Factory. They sold the Bomb Factory out.
Did they just recently play that?
About 6 months ago, yeah.
By the way, how great is it? It's called the Bomb Factory again.
Yeah.
Yes, we moved past the
full circle,
PC
right?
name of the venue.
Oh, is it back to the Bomb Factory?
It is the Bomb Factory.
Oh, okay, sweet. I've been curious.
Normalcy returns.
If I may ask, I know you were talking about Jesse Wells being somebody you think is going to be, the next big thing. Out of all of your years being in the local music scene here, are there some musicians, some bands that you've come across who have exceeded expectations? And you're like, oh, I saw them back in, you were talking about Metallica, for instance, back in 80? You were talking about, you saw Metallica back in 1980. Is there any other, like maybe even just local bands that you know of that really blew up? And
New Bohemians. Every New Bohemian show back in the mid 80s or whatever, every time you saw them, you were like, how is this band not going to be huge? Every one of their shows was brilliant. It was different. And they just had songs for days. I mean, it was, they were, to me, first time I saw them, I was like, they've got it. I mean, they're going to write their own ticket to go anywhere they want to go.
Theater Gallery with 10,000 Maniacs, New Bohemians, right?
They opened for 10,000 Maniacs twice.
Yeah.
On 2 different nights.
I remember my wife and I were there.
Yeah. And they blew 10,000 Maniacs off the stage. I mean, it wasn't even close.
I'm pretty proud of Rhett and the old 97s, too.
Yeah.
I think those guys have gone on to become, international superstars.
Yeah, St. Vincent.
St. Vincent, my goodness.
She grew up a couple blocks from my house.
Lake Highlands.
Wow.
She played with, Lake Highlands. She played with Polyphonic Spree, and she just opened for Nick Cave, I think, right? Yeah, she's doing great.
It's pretty extraordinary, actually, that there's a high school in Dallas that produced Norah Jones, Erykah Badu, and Edie Brickell, and the trumpet player Roy Hargrove.
Wow.
All went to the same high school.
is that wild? Is that Grapevine? Or
No, it's Booker T. Washington, the Arts Magnet High School.
Grapevine had a fair share of big musicians too. Post Malone was from Grapevine.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
A guy that I really love, his name's Bryce Avery. He plays for the Rockets Summer. It's his band.
But he comes to Stars games. He's a huge Stars fan.
Big fan of his, and he went to Grapevine.
They played here.
There's a wealth of musicians that come from the Metroplex.
Didn't Ben Queller go to school there? Yeah.
Queller was here. His band was called Radish. Remember that?
I toured with Radish.
Really?
On the
Radish
1997
Lollapalooza
He was like
tour.
13
years old.
He was 16 at the
was
time.
16, sorry.
And his dad was a doctor. His dad was on the tour. He was like the doctor for the tour. And Ben was 16 at the time.
Yeah.
The tour at a doctor?
Oh, yeah. You got to have a doctor.
On a tour like Lollapalooza with that many bands and that many people all that close together, yeah.
Well, I've never been on tour, but you have. You would know these things.
Got to have a doctor.
Michael, is it possible to hear just for a second from Chris what it's like to play the Sphere in Las Vegas?
I'd love to hear that story. And with more on that, here's the great Chris Holt.
You want a soliloquy on playing the Sphere?
Yeah, give us the.
I will say that it's pretty mind blowing. It's all swirling around you, and it's really hard not to look at it, but you kind of have to train yourself not to look. So for me, when I knew that I had the gig, they flew me in to see the show, the Stewart's final shows, and because he was retiring, and I got a chance to watch the show from the audience, and afterward it was like, okay, did you get a chance to look at all the content and check out the room? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, good. Now don't ever look at it again because you're gonna fall off the stage or vomit, because it is. It's just so much going on in that room. It is still a little terrifying every time I walk, because when we walk on stage, there's this whole thunderstorm swirling around us, and I have to walk up these stairs in the dark holding a double neck guitar, which is absolutely terrifying. But then I come around the drum riser and the Hammond organ, and it opens up, and you can see all the people, and that's a moment. It's a real moment where I sit there and go, wow, how did I get here?
That's gonna be a transformative thing, because now when people see that, the concert goers now are going to expect a 3D experience. They're going to expect a more immersive experience when they go to see a show.
It's hard to imagine where concerts go from.
Yeah, it takes it from being a like you sit out there and we'll stand up here thing to being this full on.
Well, and Vince Gill joked about it where he said it's the most people I've ever been ignored by.
That's funny.
Because they're not looking at you, but there are a lot of people looking at you, and then of course you're projected up onto the big screen too. I tend to laugh that whenever I fly to Vegas, nobody knows who I am, but when I come home from Vegas, everybody knows who I am, because they're always like, "You were the guy on the screen." I guess. Wow. But it's gotten more comfortable for me in recent weeks. I just have gotten a little more used to the choreography of the show and the way the room feels. So, I have to do a lot of heavy lifting. I'm having to work really hard and play lead guitar for the majority of the show. So and I'm singing too while I'm doing that. So
and you got to fit in the pocket with Joe Walsh, right?
Yeah,
on a lot of those
Joe and I have to play off
real.
of each other and be in sync together. So that there is a real. I say it's an actively difficult gig. It's a challenging gig musically. But there are moments where, the focal point will go to Joe, and he'll take a long extended solo,
of course,
or something, and
Joe
then
Walsh.
I'll kind of sit there and I'll get a chance to look around the room, and I'll kind of be like, cool.
Is Don Henley still the taskmaster he's always been?
Yeah, well, I mean, Don has a great vision for what he wants the show to be, and he's always, we tweak the content to the show, and Don is working very directly with all the creators to make sure that the content is always up to date. He has a new idea for what he wants to do. So yeah, Don and Joe are both very meticulous about wanting everything to sync up with the content that's on the screen, but also to be tight. I mean, we still have vocal rehearsals. We still have to get we try to be as close to the record as we can.
But he's not giving you a report card at the end of every gig.
No,
right?
but I mean, if there's something where, and I mean, if any of us make mistakes, which we do, we forget the lyric, or we sing the wrong note, or we play the wrong note, that happens. It's not like you get rapped over the knuckles or anything, but sometimes we'll come in and be like, hey, we've got in sound check, we've got to work on this song because it's been a little loose the last couple nights. But that's what I think any band does that really cares about getting it right. But the Eagles are, they're known for that. They're known for very, very precise harmony singing and precise arrangements. And the thing about it for me is that the fans know those songs. The fans know every single note of the guitar solo I'm playing. I'm not going to take liberties and do my own thing with it. I might get a few bars at the end of the song where I get to improvise a little, and I will do that occasionally. But if it's a signature solo, like if I'm playing the solo in one of these nights or in Hotel California, I don't change it.
No, of course not.
It's like they don't.
I'll just say that
it was perfect to begin with. I'm not going to take that and make it about me.
Not going to be that guy, huh?
No.
Another thing about the sphere that is changing, fundamentally changing live music, is the residency aspect of it.
Yeah.
Because after COVID happened, it wasn't real cost effective for bands to go on tour and play in a different city every night and have to travel during the day and play at night, then travel during the day and play at night. And now that you're seeing residencies happen where artists will play for 2 or 3 weeks in a row in the same venue, the audience comes to them instead of you coming to them.
Yeah, I think that's really appealing to
to
road crews.
Yeah,
it's really appealing to the artists themselves. It takes so much of the wear and tear of the road off of your shoulders.
Truck stop bathrooms.
Yeah. So that part of it is,
Well, I just wanted to say, as the afternoon guy on the one last classic rock station in Dallas-Fort Worth, who does play probably 6 Eagles songs in the course of 3 hours while I'm on the air in the afternoons. We're all really proud of you, brother.
Yeah, man.
It's really cool that you're playing
I really
with the
appreciate
Eagles.
you guys. So it's been
and I remember
You're
you
a civic treasure, man. We all know it. You are a civic treasure.
Yeah. So it's so cool to talk about the Eagles on the radio and say, by the way, go to the Sphere, see Chris. Chris is from Dallas. Yes.
Henley
the
lives
beautiful
here too.
part of it for me is that I
Henry's a
grew up
Dallas
a fan. I grew up a fan of. I was learning those guitar parts in my bedroom when I was 14 years old. The first song I ever played in front of people at a camp, at a summer camp, was Hotel California, and now I play the solo and at the Sphere, and
that ain't easy.
No, it's tricky to get it right, and so it is a dream gig for a guitar player, especially somebody like me who grew up in the classic rock era. And the songs are just brilliant. You can't argue with those songs. You come see the show at the Sphere, and the 20 songs we play, every single one of them. And it's like, damn, that is a lot of great
Victim
songwriting.
of Love has my favorite line of any song in it. I could be wrong, but I'm not.
Victim of Love. It's a great one.
I know you're locked in when you're playing. You have that professionalism side, right? You're locked in and playing these songs. But do you ever take a moment and just go, holy shit? I'm playing guitar for the Eagles.
That's what's nice about the songs where I don't have to work as hard. Because if there's a song where I can kind of settle in and just play a little rhythm guitar, I can sit there and relax a little and enjoy just the surreal aspect of it. Where it's
your first gig.
Again, it's like, how did I get here? I have said for years that I'm the luckiest musician in the world because
it makes people happy.
I've just fallen into these opportunities, and obviously
you don't fall into those opportunities.
You get it because you're good. Of preparation and skill, but there's a ton of luck involved. There's so much luck involved.
Well, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity.
There you go. We've all got stories. We just been in the right place at the right time, and Jesse and I were talking before we came on stage. Especially in media, and what I get to do for the Stars, and then the Cowboys. The Cowboys should have done an international search for a public address announcer. They have no business having Jeff Kay, who's never done PA in his life, doing NFL football, let alone the number one franchise in the world. But you have relationships. They've opened a door for you. Maybe it's temporary. Hey, look, Chris, we'll give you a show at the Sphere. See how it goes. I don't know what the story was. Probably not. But for me, it was the Cowboys. Give you one game, see how it goes.
The way I look
and you
at it
hang on for dear life, and hopefully it never ends.
The way I look at it every time is I've got one show at
there
the
you
Sphere.
Go. You're only as good as your last show.
See, that's the great
I'll
thing
get to
about
play there
him.
tomorrow, too.
That's the great thing about him. That's the way he looks at it. I got one show. I better make it count. Yeah. And he unfailingly does.
I'm incredibly grateful, and thank you guys for all the kind words. It's been really fantastic so far. So.
Well, we got to wrap things up here. This has been a divine hour, I must say. Thank you all for doing it. Now, tell me what you're going to be listening to on the way home, Jesse.
I'm going to get ready. I'm going to the Tedeschi Trucks concert coming up here in, I think it's the first Tuesday of May. So I'll be listening to that on my way home.
I'll tell you what. I think he's the best on the planet.
Dude, Derek Trucks.
I don't think there's a guitar player that can match him. He's just out of this world.
It's unbelievable. I've seen them, 5 or 6 times now. I saw Susan Tedeschi when I was a teenager play at Indie Jazz Fest, and I fell in love with her, and then Tedeschi Trucks came along, and then Derek Trucks, the way he makes a guitar sing.
Just unbelievable.
That's what I'll be listening to on my way home, getting ready for that concert in about a week. I can't wait.
You're headed for the radio, aren't you, Jeff?
Yeah, I'll be on today from 3 to 7, the unofficial Dallas Stars pregame show. If you're into non-sports talk and you want to hear lots of Eagles.
Stars? What is happening? What is this collapse?
It's always great when you're so tied in with the Stars and they lose like 8 in a row. Jeff, what's going on with your Stars? If I knew, I'd be behind the bench. No, on the way home, I'm probably going to listen to the new album from The Horrors. They're a great band from England that kind of gothy, a little bit of like Tones on Tail meets the Sisters of Mercy. Again, it's a new thing, but reminds me of an old thing, so I like it. Or The Elder Twig. Brian Daddario has a new solo album out. It's called Till the Morning. I may listen to that.
He never gets away from it. He always keeps it real. What about you, Jeff?
Well, I live about 150 feet away from here, so I'll be walking.
Okay,
home.
So you're not going to listen to it while you're walking, but you're going to get home, and what are you going to put on?
My wife, Melissa, has these playlists of that's stuff that's instrumental stuff like Hermanos Gutierrez and Lalam and stuff like that. She's really into that, so she kind of programs all the music at our house, which is fine with me because I love listening to instrumental music. You know, I can still go about thinking about what I need to be doing and all that. That's really what we listen to at the house.
Chris, what about you?
I'm going to go listen to some Ultravox. Man, you guys have been talking about Ultravox so much. I'm like, God, I need to go dig through that again. It's been a while.
Vienna
but I tell you
Rage
what,
and
and this is a little bit of shameless
You're not going to
promotion.
sharpen up Already Gone or something like that?
Maybe in a few weeks. But I'm going to listen to a lot of Badfinger because I've got a show coming up next Sunday with a bunch of guys you know, Paul Averett and all those dudes, and we're doing a tribute to the great Badfinger, 50 years since the death of Pete Ham this week. And those songs are amazing, and I'm a huge fan. And so we're doing this show next Sunday at Deep Ellum Art Company, and I'm really excited to get out and do one night of just playing Badfinger songs. So that's what I'm probably going to be listening to all week just to make sure I don't screw it up.
Just to make sure he don't screw it up.
That's
Those are the
a
words.
musician's
That
thing.
is his
You're
mantra.
always listening to whatever your next gig is.
Well, I hope this band, you call it the Eagles? I hope they do well. I hope they take off.
They're working on it.
Good luck.
I've heard a couple things from them. They got a shot.
Yeah, they might be all right one day.
Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you all out there in podcast land for being by the channel. Thanks to Jeff Liles, the great folks here at the Kessler for having us out. And thank you to the CBD House of Healing. Thank you, Summer. Good to see you here today. Yes, please listen to your Dark Companion just as often as you possibly can. We're doing new stuff all the time. We try to get a couple things a week up there. So do check it out. We appreciate you. Until next time, bye.
All right. I'm going to go take my pants off.
Your Dark Companion is a Stolen Water Media presentation.